The 18th century gave the world the balloon. The 19th century gave the airship. The 20th century gave the plane. In the 21st century, another revolution happened. Now a person can see everything from above, but he doesn't need to climb high. These are pilotless aerial vehicles. In our country, they are called multicopters, and abroad, they are more often called drones. But here and abroad, their number is increasing. However, what role they will play in the future isn't clear yet. But this role is going to be great. The program Experiments has already showed multicopters which are used for filming clips and full-length movies. Attempts to use these machines as couriers to deliver goods, for example pizza, and also an extremely unusual and super dynamic sport, drone racing, that is, racing on high-speed multicopters. In the new episode, you'll learn how multicopters can be used to find those lost in the forest, to identify a fire source, to create accurate maps, to manage their flight by the power of thought, and of course, to fly just to enjoy it. The program Experiments continues studying the huge world of modern multicopters. The journey begins right now. This is a new kind of sport called drone racing, flights on high-speed models of multicopters. The program Experiments has already told you about the basic rules of the competition. We have learned a bit about the structure of racing multicopters, and I even tried to fly one of them. It was the flight that something went wrong with. Although I have some piloting skills, after several unsuccessful attempts to keep the device at the same altitude, I confidently piloted it to meet some branches. There it all ended. So what went wrong with me? It turns out that these racing vehicles have no controllers responsible for the altitude, like most modern multicopters. That is, they cannot hang on their own in one place. Their flight must always be controlled by the pilot. To put it simple, let's just say a racing multicopter differs from a usual one, almost like a car with a manual transmission from a car with an automatic transmission. We'll return to the question of piloting multicopters later. In the meantime, next in the program, multicopters in the service of the Ministry of Emergency Situations, or how to find a person lost in the forest using a thermal imager, control without a control console. Russian developers have learned to give commands to flying drones by power of thought. And the most fashionable gadget: why do more and more people buy multicopters, and how do they use them? Multicopters have recently entered the Ministry of Emergency Situations service. They are equipped with a high-resolution camera and a thermal imager.
The first idea of purchasing such a device appeared because of a great risk of forest and peat fires in the territory of our region. The forest area is very large. There's a lot of peat here, which unfortunately tends to burn too.
A multicopter can fly where no SUV can drive. And with the help of a thermal imager, it is possible to detect a hotspot even under the ground. It is important, of course, to understand what this thermal imager is. Human skin can feel a 0.0001 temperature change, but of course, we cannot see this change. Eyes perceive a very narrow spectrum of radiation. It is called visible light. Infrared radiation, that is, heat has a longer wavelength. Our vision cannot perceive it, but an infrared camera or a thermal imager can make the temperature visible. This requires special optics. Glass doesn't let infrared radiation through well, so the lenses for thermal imagers, as a rule, are made of a rare metal, germanium. The lens focuses the heat flow, transmits it to the matrix, the signal is processed further, and the image is displayed on the screen. So, with the help of electronics and optics, you can literally see the heat. If compared to ordinary cameras, thermal imagers are very expensive. And in this case, you attach it to the multicopter to take it into the air. Why? Not only is it important for rescuers to spot the fire source in time, but also to know exactly where it is. Let's check what the multicopter plus camera plus thermal imager system is capable of. Let's try to find a flare. We're taking off.
There's some smoke on the horizon. Well, at a sufficient distance from here, we should fly there. Take a closer look.
Now the thermal imager is useless, too far from the spot. Relying on my layman's eye, I'd easily confuse it with some fog, for example, over a river.
Well, that's why for these cases we use a thermal imager which can show the exact temperature of this fog.
It's impossible to understand from the picture given by an ordinary camera what the fire area is. Roughly speaking, because of the smoke, you cannot see where exactly the fire is burning. The thermal imager helps to see. There are several sources of fire at the edge of the forest, but it doesn't seem to be a fire.
Well, perhaps most likely workers burn branches of felled trees. This is the so-called burning of felling waste, most likely. In this situation, this burning up occurs at a fairly large distance from the forest, so, well, the forest fire isn't a risk for us here. We can even see it from this picture.
Like this. Within 10 to 15 minutes, we have figured it out. Yes, there is a fire. No, it's not the forest that's burning, but there's some work in progress. Moreover, we didn't even have to drive directly to the place. But infrared radiation isn't only emitted by burning objects, but also by any heated or warm objects. For example, by a person. Here's another way to test the possibilities of such a device. To find a person lost in the forest, you need a rescue party. Dozens of people have to be involved. Let's see if only one multicopter with an infrared camera on board can handle this task. For the sake of experiment, I am ready to get lost in the forest. Well, that's that. Further on, the forest is quite thick, so I should only go a little bit into it. Then, we can give a command to the multicopter pilots to start looking for me. It's very important to find the lost one as quickly as possible, because a person becomes weak without food and water. The multicopter helps to reduce the search time significantly.
The With this aerial vehicle, we can comb out the forest at a speed of up to 100 kilometers per hour. It's impossible to walk in the forest at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. On the other hand, you can't drive a car there either.
As many rescuers note, people, when they don't know which way to go, having lost their way in the forest, they still prefer to get out to a more or less open area. And this simplifies the rescuer's task greatly, too. If they use a multicopter with a thermal imaging camera on board. Because a person emitting infrared waves can be found in some open space quite easily. Mobile phones, as a rule, are useless. First, the battery runs out quickly. Secondly, a person lost in the forest cannot explain where he is, and it is difficult for rescuers to give him directions. With a multicopter, everything should be much easier. Now, let's go a little bit lower.
40. Don't go below 40. In fact, I don't see very well the picture the camera is sending to the screen.
And here's the multicopter. Very fast. I really don't know if they found me, noticed me or not, but I can see the multicopter from here.
Yes, we got him.
Yes.
We see.
A man. Well, I go over him. I accompany him visually. I can see him. In total, the search took more than 5 minutes. Although, I must admit, I didn't really try to hide from the rescuers. But the experiment showed that a multicopter armed with a thermal imaging camera is capable of conducting a full-scale search and rescue operation. On my part, I can report the person successfully lost in the forest has been successfully found. Many thanks to you.
It's very nice of you.
Coming up next, to control with the power of thought. Russian researchers have come up with how to give commands to the multicopter straight from your head, and also a homemade map. And why do more and more people buy flying toys? Do you remember how I didn't manage to control the high-speed multicopter? But if I hadn't succeeded with the racing vehicles, then maybe I should fly something calmer. The beauty of modern technology is that they make available those things that only professionals could use before. A leg has been piloting multicopters for many years. I have some experience too. Did you quickly learn to control this device in the air?
Well, I didn't start with this one. I bought a small multicopter first, which cost kind of around 2,000 rubles without a camera, just to practice, to understand, well, the mechanics, yes, sort of, the physics of the process.
Yeah.
And, well, honestly speaking, I destroyed the whole apartment. I scratched all the walls, but it gives very good understanding of how this happens in general. That is, fingers. Fingers remember the movements very well.
These are medium-class multicopters. Both of them are what's called for the widest range of consumers. The price, they cost like 2 or 3 modern smartphones, and functionally, they decrease pilots' controlling errors as much as it's possible. My first impression of these devices is that I'm not afraid that I'll do something fatal in the sky. That is, it helps me a lot. Well, it keeps the horizon level automatically. If I let go of the stick, it
Keeps in the same place, yes.
It freezes in one place. It forgives all the mistakes of a novice. Therefore, probably these machines have become so popular among beginners. There are so many controllers in them, automatically supporting the altitude, horizon, orientation by satellites, that you can crash such a multicopter only if you really try very hard. And video and photos produced by them are of really high quality. And by the way, about photos and video, it is thanks to the camera, which is put on many models of multicopters by design. It's now possible to use these machines in an unusual way. I'm talking about mapping the terrain. Maps made using drones are 30 to 40 times more accurate than satellite ones. It is clear why. Multicopters fly at a height of several meters to several kilometers.
Ready. I'm taking off.
And here's how to create maps with their help. The multicopter levitates over the desired area at an altitude of 100 meters.
We direct the camera perpendicular to the ground and start shooting.
The operator's task is to take a picture at an angle of 90 degrees. This is necessary to avoid distortion.
Every building in the frame should be exactly in the center. That is, if we have 7 houses, then we must take at least 7 photos, where each house is in the center of a separate photo.
The more pictures, the more accurate the map. Next, the computer program unites all the images shot into a single file, the so-called orthophoto map, the exact, even the most accurate projection of the surface.
The orthophoto maps that we do with the help of multicopters have a greater detailization than satellite maps. If the quality of the satellite map is about 35 to 40 centimeters per pixel, the quality of our maps is 2 centimeters per pixel. The difference is just huge. And this allows us, for example, to see a cigarette pack on the ground with very well-defined edges from an altitude of 100 meters.
This is just the case when the possibilities of multicopters are greater than their creators intended. Next, we have the control of the flying machine with the power of thought. Can this become the future of aviation? And is it so easy to learn how to give commands directly from your head to the multicopter? In a couple of seconds, you'll learn about this in the program Experiments. It's probably a dream of any pilot, and not just a multicopter pilot, to learn how to operate the device directly from your head. That is, you think, it flies. You think to the right, it flies to the right. You think to the left, it flies to the left. Well, and so on. And this dream has come true. A neural interface has already been created that will replace the control console, but not everyone can manage to use it.
The joystick you can operate in a state of aggression, there or some kind of frustration, and this won't affect the flights of the same flying device in any way. Well, but if you are, well, upset or something, puzzled, then you cannot normally concentrate, relax, or imagine some movement to the left or to the right.
Let's start the experiment. The language of communication with the machine is the different states of the multicopter's pilot's mind. They are read using an encephalograph. The drone perceives neutral state as the command to hang in the air. The operator only has to concentrate and the machine will move forward. A relaxed state means turning left. And you'll never believe it really works. Oh my God. Everything flies. And practically to the operator. And this is some kind of filigree skill. Listen, this is some kind of magic.
This is science.
It's important to understand the computer doesn't read the pilot's commands to the left, to the right. It's too complicated. It's the general condition of the brain that it reads. Neutral, concentrated, relaxed. For an untrained person, it's not so easy to switch his mind so quickly. Now, I'll try to learn.
Yeah. Wink your eyes. Blink. Uh-huh. Clatter your teeth. It's clear. Very, yes. Now close your eyes. Well, a pronounced alpha rhythm has started.
Now my task is to find a common language with the machine. A proven method helps. If I need to concentrate, I remember the multiplication table.
Yes, you are concentrated. It's good. Now let's see how you can very quickly switch from the multiplication table to relaxation and back.
Well, I've found a common language with the program. It now understands my commands. So, cleared for takeoff. Well, it seems I immediately got it in the corner. Now I should somehow...
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. I managed to cope with it for about 20 seconds. In my opinion, that's the maximum.
No worries, this is normal. You just should learn how to relax a little.
Well,
and it'll be fine.
From the point of view of the flying school, at least I've taken off.
Of course.
The second attempt, and I managed to be in the air for about a minute. Still, it's very difficult to quickly switch the brain. Try not to think about anything or completely relax at the command, and then concentrate and relax again. In short, you need skill. In my opinion, this time it was
more or less successful.
You didn't help me, did you?
No, not in any way.
Of course, this feeling is amazing. The device reacts not to the movement of fingers on the control console, but to different states of your brain. But in general, this method of control is very complex and will suit people with disabilities more, though after long training. This neural interface was developed as a byproduct of a large-scale brain study. The developers didn't have the task of making a multicopter, which would be controlled by the power of thought. The goal was to make a detailed map of the brain. After all, in fact, it is still a mystery, and who knows what else will be invented while trying to achieve this goal. Of all the really interesting devices that have come into our lives in recent years, these buzzing machines, like a swarm of bees, do touch your heart. In our country, we call them multicopters. Abroad, they are called drones. But both here and there, users and developers agree on the main thing. Thanks to their design, multicopters have solved probably the main problem of all aircraft. They have given untrained pilots the opportunity to immediately take off into the air and control them with confidence without long training. And although there are still some disputes about the safety of such flights ahead of us, we can no longer doubt that multicopters have acquired their place in human life. And perhaps we'll still see the day when from unmanned aerial vehicles, they will turn into manned ones.